The dawn had just broken over the dusty red dirt road, a treacherous path leading into the heart of the vast nature reserve. Jake, a seasoned mechanic, was driving his pickup truck loaded with various types of tires. His job today was to service and replace all the tires on the patrol and ambulance fleet of the Ranger team. Must finish before 9 a.m. so the vehicles are ready for the emergency patrol. The tense warning from the manager still echoed in Jake's ears. Despite carrying many tires, he knew every single one was crucial. He pulled over to the side of the road to check his map and take a sip of water. He took one of the ambulance tires down to the ground to check the valve, preparing for the work ahead. Everything was going according to plan, until the quiet atmosphere of the morning was shattered. From the dense bushes, a huge male lion emerged. Its gaze wasn't one of curiosity, but a cold, calculated focus on the tire on the ground. Jake noticed a bleeding wound on its front leg. Suddenly, the lion lunged. It headbutted the tire hard, causing the heavy object to start rolling. Then it bent low, skillfully using its head and two front paws to push and steer the tire, making it roll faster down the road. Jake dropped his water bottle in horror, shouting in desperation. The scene was absurd. The king of the jungle was stealing and driving a tire. He ran after it. But the limping yet persistent lion, along with the tire, quickly disappeared into the mist and red dust. The sight of the lion driving, the tire left Jake stunned, but the anger over the ruined job quickly overtook his reason. He scrambled into his tire-loaded truck, turned the vehicle around, and hit the gas in pursuit. The truck roared, trying to keep up with the trail of dust left by the lion. Initially, the animal seemed to limp due to its leg injury, but maintained an astonishing speed. Jake continuously honked the horn and shouted, but the lion remained focused on pushing the tire, never looking back. However, the truck chase did not last long. The dirt road gradually became rougher, then veered into a trail composed only of gravel and tree roots. Jake was forced to slam on the brakes as the truck began to bounce and shake violently, nearly spilling the cargo. He realized that if he kept going, he would damage the service vehicle, and he couldn't take that risk. His frustration peaked. Jake turned off the engine, jumped out of the cabin, and started running after it on foot. At this point, the lion was forced to confront the difficult terrain. Pushing the tire on the uneven ground was a major challenge. It had to constantly use its head and shoulder to push hard, while simultaneously adjusting the angle with its front paws. Each time the tire got stuck between two rocks, it had to stop, use all its strength to free it, and then continue pushing. These involuntary course corrections exacerbated the injury on its leg. Jake ran for about a kilometer. He was a mechanic, not an athlete. His lungs burned, his muscles ached, and he realized the distance between him and the animal was widening. Finally, he collapsed on the roadside, watching the figure of the lion and the rolling tire slowly disappear completely around a bend. It's really gone mad, Jake stammered, his despair mixed with extreme confusion. The tire had become a mysterious unknown, a treasure being transported by an unyielding will, lying back on the deserted road. Jake had to accept that this event defied all logic he had ever known. All he could do was pull out his phone, call the Ranger team,
I'm gonna need some assistance
prepare
out here.
for a story no one would believe. While Jake was desperately grappling with his unbelievable story, a distance away, true desperation reigned. Sarah, the ranger in charge of rescue, was in an extremely difficult situation. Her ambulance sat silently on the roadside, completely paralyzed. The rear right wheel was torn open, the steel belting exposed. Inside the vehicle cabin, life was struggling. A lion cub, seriously injured in the leg, was fading in the transport cage. Sarah had applied first aid, but she knew the animal needed emergency surgery. Just 30 more minutes, darling. Hold on, Sarah whispered, constantly pressing the emergency call button on the radio and phone. But all efforts were in vain. The radio only emitted static. The phone was dead, having been used all night for communication. The ambulance was her only hope, and now it had a flat tire in an area with no signal and no traffic. Sarah's tears rolled down her cheeks. She had risked going deep into the reserve to save this cub, and now she was about to fail because of a damaged piece of rubber. Just as Sarah slumped over the steering wheel, exhausted and despairing, a strange sound echoed, the scraping noise of something rolling on the dirt road. She looked up. The scene left her speechless. The male lion was pushing the tire toward the ambulance. Its body was covered in dust, and it was clear it had endured an arduous journey. The lion stopped, dropped the tire right in front of the vehicle's nose, just a few steps from the damaged wheel. It retreated slightly, standing still, with no intention of attacking and no threatening roar. It just stood there, as if presenting an offering. Sarah slowly understood. Her astonishment turned into overwhelming emotion. She looked at the tire, glanced at the weak cub, and then looked back at the large male lion standing guard. Sarah trembled. She understood everything. The lion had seen the stranded vehicle, had seen its dying kin, and somehow, it knew that this tire was the only thing that could save them. It wasn't a thief. It was a reluctant savior, risking everything to steal the vital tool from the hands of humans. The cub in the car stirred slightly, letting out a weak cry like a greeting. The moment of realization between human and animal, between life and death, had reached its climax. The inanimate tire was no longer just material. It was a symbol of kinship, sacrifice, and the most intense perseverance. While Sarah was still immersed in the shock and emotion of the male lion's extraordinary life, the sound of a truck engine revving from afar echoed. Jake had found a detour and driven up. He approached slowly, worried about whether he would face an aggressive lion or a scene of property theft. But the sight before him left him frozen. Jake looked at the tire lying neatly, the damaged ambulance, the fading cub in the cage, and finally, the male lion standing there, patient and composed. The entire absurd story suddenly became clear and completely logical. There was no aggression, only the desperation and love of a creature. All of Jake's initial frustration and anger melted away. He felt a slight shame for misunderstanding the animal's motive. Jake and Sarah exchanged a look. Without words, they shared a deep understanding. This was not the time to argue about a stolen tire. This was the time to act. Jake bowed his head low to the male lion, as a silent apology and admiration. "Thank you, my brave friend," he thought. Immediately, Jake and Sarah set to work on changing the tire. The male lion remained a few meters away, like a father watching the treatment of his child. Its presence was not frightening. It provided a positive pressure, reminding them of the need for speed and precision. The jack was lifted. Jake worked quickly and professionally. Sarah assisted, her hands loosening the lug nuts while she glanced at the clock. Time was still against them. The dry sound of the lug wrench, the clanking of metal, and the heavy breathing of the two humans mingled with the gentle panting of the guarding lion. The male lion occasionally shifted slightly, showing impatience, but completely trusted the actions of the humans. It had completed its impossible task. Now it was time to hand over hope to Jake's skilled hands and Sarah's dedication. Finally, the new tire was mounted, solid and ready. Jake tightened the last lug nut and stood up straight. He nodded to Sarah. The ambulance was saved. The ambulance engine started. The steady purr in the silent space brought immense relief. Sarah immediately moved to the driver's seat. She knew that, thanks to this incredible cooperation, the cub had a chance to survive. Before driving off, Sarah slowly opened the window. The male lion walked closer. It was neither scared nor hostile. It gently pressed its large muzzle against the car window, right where the cub was lying. The cub in the cage, despite its weakness, tried to raise its head, emitting a tiny cry in response. It was a moment of pure, wordless communication, containing all the love and gratitude. After that brief touch, Sarah quietly pressed the gas. The vehicle rolled slowly, beginning its journey to the veterinary station. Jake stood on the roadside, watching the ambulance until it disappeared completely. He turned back to look at the male lion. The mission was accomplished. The fatigue and the wound on its leg seemed to remain, but its stride was now different. It turned its back on the humans, needing no praise or or confirmation. It walked toward the deep forest, the relaxed and proud demeanor of a father who had fulfilled his duty. The inanimate tire had now completed its life-saving mission. Jake watched it go. He realized the biggest lesson of the day was not about vehicle maintenance, but the understanding of the nature of courage and sacrifice. This story went far beyond his routine work. In the wild, we often see competition, the harsh instinct for survival. But sometimes, the most heroic acts come from where we least expect them. The lion did not use its claws to fight an enemy. It used its will to overcome pain, its ingenuity to transport hope, and its love to beg for help from its natural adversary, humans. The story of Jake, Sarah, and their four-legged savior reminds us, across all barriers of species and language, compassion and kinship are always the strongest links. Together, they made a miracle happen. If this story of love transcending limits has touched your heart, please support the tireless conservation efforts of rangers and rescue workers like Sarah and Jake. Every day, they work to protect extraordinary stories like this one. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel to spread this message. Let's work together to protect the moments where instinct meets compassion. Thank you for watching.